just about a year ago, Mark Carney took the wheel as Prime Minister of Canada. And tonight we're going to talk about it. I have Judy, I have Elie, and I have Anthony back to discuss this. Of course, we have some differing perspectives between Conservatives and Liberals here on this panel. And I just want to have an open conversation about Carney and how he's done on a couple of different things. We're not going to have time to get super deep, unfortunately, but we can talk a little bit high level. I asked all of you to come with one stat that you feel tells the real story of Mark Carney's first year in office. Anthony, I want to give you the opportunity to kick this off, and then we'll kind of go down as we go.
So you asked for a number.
One stat that tells
One
the story.
stat, 24 points ahead in preferred prime minister from Pierre Poilievre, and that makes me feel really good.
All right. Elie?
Well, I love that Elie has to show his polling because there really isn't much impressive. Here's my number, 66 billion. That is Carney's deficit. And it matters because these deficits cost a lot of money. We've spent $53 billion on debt interest in the last fiscal year. And the Liberals, between 2015 and 2030, we will be spending $600 billion on debt interest. That's real money. That money is not being spent on any program. It's being burned to fund the debt of the Liberal Party.
Okay, Judy, I wanted to ask you, really, where do you see Canada on the global stage now after Carney's taken about a year? Do you think we have more credibility than we did have before?
No, we're weaker than ever before. Just like that stat mentioned, we're $66 billion in deficit. That is not going to put us in an economically viable position, especially when we're facing threats from Donald Trump of tariffs, of economic uncertainty in this global political situation that we're in. Absolutely not.
Anthony, I want to give you a chance to really touch on this deficit because it seems like these two really want to hammer that point home.
Okay. I just look at the merits of it. So first of all, we went through a global pandemic. I know a lot of people like to leave that out of the conversation. And that is a big part of the conversation because we all know what happened in 21, 22, and actually, I always forget 2020. And I'm in the real estate business, so I know exactly where a lot of that debt came from, and I know exactly what a lot of it was used for. A lot of the merits in that, I think, are worth arguing about, but I want to touch upon this global stage thing. I think the Davos speech completely shows where we are on the global stage. We're in the lead with the middle powers. I like that he recognizes us as a middle power. I don't want to be a superpower nation. I like that he's more practical with that. And the Davos speech was wonderful. And
well, I definitely say we have somebody more capable.
We are getting more credibility on the world stage with that. You have a prime minister who is working with our partners, flying to different countries, making trade deals and opening up trade with other countries is very important. And I think he's been very smart on the U.S. file by buying time because we do have time.
Where's the deal?
We have time, though, to negotiate that. And I think we just saw the Supreme Court ruling, the fact that the tariffs have been struck down is illegal. It violates the Kuzma agreement that the president wrote and said was the greatest deal you've ever seen. Now it's the worst deal you've ever seen. I don't understand how that happens. I think we have somebody who's calm, collected, and pragmatic. And I do believe that that's what Canadians were looking for in the last election.
Elliot, you've talked about this a little bit just on some of your YouTube videos. I actually pulled from this and I wanted to quote you here. So you kind of talk a lot about the exit tax. You talk about the business climate and the drain brain stats, like 40% of top earners considering leaving.
They've already left the 40%.
Okay, all right. 80% of college students saying they'd take a job in the U.S. over Canada. Is it fair to say that this is Carney's doing?
Actually, it's not Carney's doing per se because Carney's only been there for a year. He's not blame-free, though, because he was the advisor of Justin Trudeau on the economy. But I do think a lot of this does go on Justin Trudeau because here's the thing. One of the first things Justin Trudeau did when he took office is he raised taxes on the top earners. What that does is it's a punishment, punishes success, okay? The top earners in Ontario are taxed at 53%. The government takes more than half your income. In places like Florida, it's 37%, and it only kicks in at around 3 times the amount.
All right, but I don't hear Carney. Here's the thing. So, Judy, I don't hear Carney saying, you know, I'm proud of tax. He's never come out and said, I'm proud of taxing the rich that much money.
Trudeau did. He bragged about it every single day in the House of Commons for 10 years.
And I would say that the Liberal Party has significantly changed. But I'm just trying to balance it out. Judy, do you feel that the Liberal Party is not different than what they were when they had Trudeau compared to Carney?
I definitely agree with you that Justin, Trudeau didn't have a brain cell, whereas Carney, I think, is extremely...
I never said that, by the way.
I am saying that.
Yeah, okay.
I think Carney is intelligent. Sorry.
That's okay.
Projection, I don't know. No, I mean, Carney is intelligent. I agree with you. He's a great speech maker. I wish that he was just as good of a budgeter, but he's unfortunately not. And I think things that really impact everyday Canadians are not going to be nice speeches in front of people where he's speaking to world leaders when everyday Canadians are suffering and they're having to face the consequences of his actions. And this deficit is going to have future lasting impacts for young Canadians.
I will add also, it's the same staff. Like that, I used to work as a political staffer. That was my first job. I got that when I was 17.
5 seconds.
And these are the same people running the Carney government. Different leader, same same people, same operatives.
I'm going to give you a chance to respond in the second segment, so you have a little bit of time here. We'll be right back. Stay tuned for more. All right, we're continuing our conversation on Mark Carney's just over a year in office. And of course, we have some conservatives and liberals joining us. Anthony, I wanted to give you a chance to respond, and I'm just going to throw this over to you. Carney was kind of seen as the economist's economist. I actually knew a lot of conservatives who were quite happy that he won in comparison to Pierre, including some people close to me. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you look at a year in, what are some of the economic points or that you would point to say, okay, we're on the right track? And would I best guess that the deficit is actually, you would say, wise spending?
It depends on how you look at it. They've made comments in the previous segment, and I understand the dismay from the previous leader in the previous 9 years, and there were things and mistakes that were made, and I'll admit that on television because I think it's right to admit when things are wrong, and I'm sure we're going to touch upon one of them. Well, I'll say a few of them were, and this is what I think in terms of economics. First of all, you have Ottawa talking to Alberta, which I think is a very, very huge step in the right direction. The fact that BC is getting an expansion in a natural gas pipeline, which I've said on your show before, I thought that it was wrong that the Trudeau government said there was no business case. That was a wrong thing. It's on tape. You can check it. We are going in the right direction and trending and recognizing that to build Canada strong, all players have to be involved. And we're at a crucial time now where our economics have changed, the world has changed, and we have to start looking inward, and natural resource extraction has to be a part of building the country. I get climate change is a thing. The other thing that I would point to is the tax cut for 22 million Canadians, which I think was very important. Yes, the idea was taken from the Conservatives. We did cut the consumer carbon tax. I think that brought the temperature down quite a bit in the country. As much as yes, it was an idea, I think it was the right thing to do given the times. People are upset, people are hurting, there's an affordability crunch. And I think in terms of recognizing where our strengths are internally, he's done that. But it's too early to say because it's going to take time for that stuff to happen. So I can't say yes or no. I can say I believe we're going in the right direction.
Your thoughts, Elie?
Well, again, are we really going in the right direction? Because Canada has the highest food inflation in the G7. We still have out of control crime, and we're recording this in St. Catharines. Go downtown St. Catharines. It's not pretty. There's drugs, crime, and disorder. I was just in Edmonton. It was a war zone. I was just in the downtown east side. I'm working on a series now where we're showing that Canada's still broken because it is. A lot of what Mark Carney says, I agree. It sounds nice. I would like to see it come to fruition.
How much action, though? Like,
the problem is we have a lot of structural problems that they're not addressing. They're talking a big game about the global stage and everything, but our streets are filthy. We need to fix Canada, inflation, affordability, etc.
I can't wait till the federal government's in charge of municipal sanitation.
Well, Judy, so
Judy, bail reforms.
I wanted to ask you because I think there's a level of, okay, so it's either Mark Carney kind of takes a Trump approach and makes 30 new decisions within, a month. Canada would not be able to take that. I mean, America somehow did in some capacity where Trump made like 30, 40 different decisions within the first month. And it felt like a million things were changing. I don't feel Canada's in a position to feel that way. Do you feel enough's been done in the first year to combat sort of what Elie was talking about?
I will say I agree with you in some ways that Carney has taken some of the conservative ideas that we have proposed for, years and applied them. So kudos to that, right? But having said that,
it was because they were good ideas.
They were great ideas, and we still have more where they came from.
I wouldn't have cut the carbon tax the way that they did, but that's fine.
There are structural issues, and these are problems that we have that we can't fix overnight. We knew that there was an infrastructure issue looming 10 years ago. We knew that there wouldn't be enough schools, hospitals, nurses. We knew that this was coming, but we didn't prepare for it.
He's inheriting I think
Exactly.
a good chunk of this, and I can imagine he's doing what he thinks is his best. Now, Elie, on the NATO side, just really quick, he's cutting a 5% check in a couple of years. We're getting to that point. He's cutting the 2% check now for NATO in defense spending. Would Pierre have done any differently?
Well, I would hope so. I will give him credit there. It's good that he's doing that. It's good that they're
But that was
taking this
part of the
seriously.
deficit spending.
Yeah, but there's also deficit spending elsewhere. And the thing is the deficit spending, we had a lot of useless deficits for many years under Trudeau, which is one of the reasons why we're so much in trouble today. But I'm glad he's funding NATO. But Justin Trudeau really underfunded the military when he was in power. He told veterans they were asking for too much while they had money for all this foreign aid and they had money for all of these woke initiatives.
Okay, go ahead and respond to that.
I don't know what the episode's about. Is it about Carney or is it about Trudeau? I thought we were talking about Mark Carney here. So let's.
Well, it's relevant to what's happening
deficit
today.
spending is going to be required if we are going to be investing in infrastructure in this country. Every dollar put into infrastructure is a job created. There is nothing wrong with deficit spending that way.
$200 million spaceport in Nova Scotia?
I am fine with that because if you remember what happened after the Avro Era, when the Conservatives canceled the program, all of our technicians went to NASA and they got to the moon and we didn't. So the other thing that we have in terms of infrastructure, she mentioned social things like hospitals, schools, and everything. Those are very big provincial issues, and I don't think the Trudeau government didn't cut a check to the provinces. $6 billion to Ontario alone, by the way, for healthcare. Where did the money go? I don't know, because we have an accountability problem.
Back to continue our discussion with Mark Carney and how he's been doing the last year. Anthony, I wanted to throw you something just with regards to Carney's climate policy. We've seen the Liberals really shift on this. We've seen somebody new come in. He's made some new investments in the climate policy. But before he got to be prime minister, he also kind of wrote a playbook on getting capital out of fossil fuels. So I think that there's something to be said there. How do you feel about the switch up? Do you feel it's a switch up for the positive? Are you mad about it? Is your circles of Liberals mad about it?
My circles.
Your circles.
So, well, there's different factions in every party. I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. So he wrote the book Values. We all know that. I read the book. I think being the prime minister, you have to know where you're operating. And this is one of the most appealing things about Mark Carney for me. He's not an ideologue. And ideology, I don't think has a place right now in our politics.
You don't think his book was
Yes.
ideological?
Well, if just let me finish this one quick point, like he always says, one quick point. So my whole thing is I don't find Mark Carney ideological. And I think that that's what Canadians are looking for right now. They're not looking for an ideological prime minister. So I think he realizes I have to govern this country. And if I govern it under ideology, it's not going to go anywhere. So he has had to make some changes. In politics, there are personal views, and then there's the views you have to govern with. And that's how I believe he's governing the country.
He's making decisions based on
what's best for this country. And if resource extraction puts money in the purse so we can invest in infrastructure, there's a memorandum of understanding that's coming. There's a memorandum of understanding, and I think he's played this but he's played it quite well because he's also put it back in the hands of the province of Alberta, who for 9 years said, you have to do all this work, Ottawa. It's a partnership. If we're building a country, we all have to be involved. They're not doing this. It's working together. And there's a lot more to building a pipeline than just playing Sim City and drawing it across the province. There's consultation that has to be done. There's a lot more to that. And I think that we're just so instant gratification and we're so quick because of cell phones. We think it's going to get done overnight. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
Right, but again, remember, we're looking at the first year. Go ahead. We're looking at Carney's first year, though.
On fossil fuels, Mark Carney wrote in his book Values that the oil had to stay in the ground. That's pretty ideological to me. But let's just look again at this government. He's taking over from a government that under its first 10 years saw $670 billion of canceled oil and gas projects. You had a prime minister that passed Bill C-69, anti-pipeline bill, banned tankers off the west coast of BC, put in an emissions cap on the sector, and that said we had to phase out the oil sands, which is what powers the wealth of this country. So I'm not yet satisfied on this issue. When I see the shovels in the ground, maybe I will be. Like, again, I want Canada to succeed. And if Mark Carney makes Canada succeed, then great. But so far on that particular issue, I've not been impressed.
I can see where the energy topic is actually quite passionate because I would look at the last 10 years and I've heard you say this, would have been good if we had started that sooner. And I think
natural gas stuff. I said that.
Yeah, I think we would have. I think we would have agreed on that.
But instead, we had a prime minister that said there was no business case for it.
That was the wrong thing to say.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so Judy, just to throw it at you, one of the things I actually found this interesting. Insurance companies. So we saw a lot of forest fires. Now, whether we believe that, and we're not going to get into this, but I think it's fair to say there's different perspectives. Whether we believe climate change is human induced or on its own, whatever. Insurance companies are actually pricing now insurance in particular areas that are forest fire heavy or what have it, vulnerable to the climate, you could say. When you consider that, is there any consideration for climate policy? You're trying to be more protective of it to maybe be a little bit more sensitive to how we treat extracting oil from the ground or liquefied natural gas.
Well, I'll say it this way.
Because you can't stop insurance companies. They're
No,
just
and
gonna
I
do what
mean,
they
if
do.
you look at the country as a business, right, there's always going to be risks. There's always going to be the need for insurance, and there's always going to be external factors. But the one thing that solves all is if you get the money in the door. If you have enough revenue coming in, then you can account for all these extra expenses. So I think my primary focus and encouragement would be that we continue to, bolster our economy and make the right decisions to make sure that we continue to grow our GDP in a productive and meaningful way so that we can account for things that we can't control, like climate change and fires.
Do we think he's taking a side? Anthony's point of saying, look, yes, he may sound ideological in his book, but he has also switched and taken his personal views out of it.
I mean, how many times can we hear Mark Carney speak out of both sides of his mouth and say, oh, but he's so smart and we just have to trust him? At one point, we have to decide that he means what he wrote in his book.
I disagree. He's governing a country where he knows that resource extraction is a very important part of the makeup of our GDP, and he's going to see that happens given the times. It's a very different world from 2015. I believe that he will, and that's what attracted me to him as a leader, was that he was a pragmatist, and I think we needed more pragmatism in the party.
Elie, I'm going to let you respond in the fourth segment here. We got to jump to commercial. Stay tuned for one more segment. Okay, so we're going to continue our discussion here in the last segment talking about Mark Carney and his first year. One of the hottest topics, you guys, is immigration particularly. Elie, immigration, I've got some stats here for us. He's cut permanent resident targets from nearly 500,000 in 24 down to 380,000 by 26, slashed temporary residents by 43% year over year. He's halved international student permits. He's done a huge amount to immigration, which is a lot of what the Conservatives called for. Are we happy with what he's done?
Well, it's a good start. And look, I've never been afraid to criticize Pierre Poilievre, and I think this was one of his biggest weaknesses, is he waited for the Liberals to take action on the immigration front, and that's really when he started to hammer them. I remember I used to work for True North, which is a conservative media, and we would ask him, what's your number? And he didn't have a number, he only had a formula. It's a good start. That said, I take it with a grain of salt, because first of all, they have also introduced a bill called the Lost Canadians Bill, which will give citizenship to a bunch of new people. So we could have a new influx of people that way. And also, it doesn't take away from the fact that under Justin Trudeau, over a million people came in 2023.
Yeah,
that's more than the population of some provinces.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I think it's commonly known that was a problem. And I think Mark Carney didn't even have to say it. He just had to act on it to show that it was such a huge, colossal mistake.
But Mark Carney also supported the Century Initiative, which was Mark Wiseman, who's his friend, that wanted to bring out by 2100, 100 million people. The business lobby wants to bring in all this cheap labor. So we have to keep that in mind.
Okay, but
I'm glad he's cutting the numbers. I still don't think it goes far enough. It's a good start. But
not far enough, but we also have to balance that with,
too.
Hold on, though. We also have to balance that with, we are actually in a labor shortage. Specifically, for example,
there are a lot of young Canadians, and we have one of the highest unemployment rates.
Okay, well, in hospitality, they're struggling to find labor. So, I mean, it's something.
I think that has to be regional. In Toronto, the unemployment rate is ridiculous, and there's many people who would love to have a hospitality job.
Hire Canadian. Hey, my brother is trying to get a job in hospitality right now. Hire Canadian.
Well, I don't know if they're handing their resumes in then. But, okay, your thoughts on the immigration policy of Carney. Seems like we've seen a Liberal big shift here, something that people have called for. They acted on it, but we also have to take into account there is a huge labor shortage. And the more that we cut immigration, the more that we will see labor shortage. We're also, just by the way, are in a birth rate that is non-replaceable. We're expected to go down to 1.2. That means we're almost one kid short of being replaceable to our population. We're going to see the entire population shift by 2060. We're going to have more old people, less young people. They might not have kids. That's very bad. The only way to stop that is immigration. There's my rant. Just your thoughts a little bit on Carney's approach to immigration. You support it, you back it, balance it with the labor shortage.
Well, you stole my rant. And I just want to make this clear for the record, because I said this before on this network on multiple shows. Anybody that supports bringing in 1.5 million people in 1 year, I think, needs their head checked. So that was a mistake that was made, and we're rectifying that mistake. So this is my stance on the immigration portfolio. You deport 1 million people, and then you wonder why the GDP goes down 1.4%. That's like throwing 1 million customers out of the country. Yeah. So the way that you do it, I think, is the way that we've done all of this in the last couple of years has really planted a seed of distrust in the system itself. And that needs to be rectified by this government. It is something I'm going to hope, and I'm going to hold the Prime Minister accountable to do that as somebody who is a Liberal. The other part of this is you just said it. There's not labor shortages are regional. She is absolutely correct about that, by the way, because Niagara versus Toronto, Hamilton, et cetera, it's all different. What are we going to do in the next 5 years when the labor shortage gets worse and the immigration targets stay the same, or this gentleman is saying that he wants it done, like the numbers cut down even more.
So I wanted to ask you, Elie.
Yeah, so hang on a second. This is very important now. CMHC has given billions of dollars of our tax money to build purpose-built rentals for nobody to live in. What is going to happen by the end of this decade if we are going by pitiful little 300,000 a year? This is what I think needs to happen. We have to go back to the 2015 targets of 500,000 people a year. It needs to be targeted towards academia, skilled labor, and trades, primarily healthcare. Newfoundland's doing great on that doctor file, by the way. And I really do believe that immigration needs to be rebuilt through trust in the system and not just bringing in all of these people and putting all of this stress on healthcare and infrastructure. By the way, can I ask everybody's honest opinion? We've gotten rid of 1 million people in Canada now. Has healthcare gotten better? Has housing gotten that much more progressively cheaper?
Well,
it absolutely has not.
Rents go down.
But home ownership is the concern of
reduced.
Canadian youth. People in their 20s want to buy houses, and the prices have not gone down enough for them to afford. It needs to be built on trust, and we have a lot of work to do on that file, by the way.
I think I will agree with you there. Listen, we can't address everything. It's an interconnected system, and importing that much immigrants in this country, it was an economic band-aid. And yes, to your point, when you have that flow stop, you're going to have the GDP go down. But that's just a prime example of a house of cards of the Canadian economy. We flooded this country with immigrants that we couldn't sustain, with infrastructure and housing that we did not have, that made Canadians suffer who have been working and paying taxes here for decades. And obviously, I'm a supporter of immigration. I am an immigrant myself, and we need to do it in a sustainable way. What is the path forward? I mean, I think it's a
Elie, I can
multi-pronged
give you
approach.
about 10 seconds here. Just
I
the
will say
cultural
we also have to take inside the cultural element. We have seen pro-Hamas protests. We're seeing ethnic conflicts in Brampton. It matters who we bring in. There's a lot of great immigrants who fit in. There's a lot that go to my church, for example, from 120 different nations. But we have to be mindful of who we're bringing in to not create conflict here in our streets.